In the bleak and tumultuous spring of the year 1945, the world was nearing the final crescendo of its long and devastating conflict. The Allied forces, having pushed their relentless advance across Europe and beyond, now prepared to break through the formidable defenses of Italy's Gothic Line, a series of heavily fortified German positions stretching across the rugged Apennines. This moment represented a critical juncture in the waning days of the war, a last fierce effort to force the enemy into retreat and to hasten the end of hostilities. However, this decisive push was not without its hazards, for success depended heavily on a daring and almost desperate maneuver. Central to this plan was a hazardous gamble at Lake Comacchio, a marshy and strategically vital waterway, which the Allies believed could serve as a vital route into enemy territory. Yet, executing such a risky operation required a leader willing to take unimaginable risks, someone daring enough, perhaps even reckless enough, to lead a small, embattled unit into the heart of entrenched German defenses. The circumstances were grim. The terrain around the lake offered no safe haven, no retreat route, and almost no margin for error. The landscape was a tangled mosaic of marshes, wetlands, and narrow waterways, leaving most commanders to view any assault in these conditions as a near-certain one-way journey into danger. The probability of survival for those selected was minimal at best, and many would consider the mission an impossible undertaking, an operation from which few would return. Despite such forbidding odds, fate had in store for this particular operation a different kind of story. Standing at the threshold of this perilous mission was a man unlike the typical military officer. He was no seasoned professional, no veteran with years of conventional training and combat experience. Instead, he was a young man of only 24 years, whose background defied the usual expectations of military leadership. His origins lay in Denmark, and his early life was marked more by adventure and unconventional pursuits than by discipline and strategy. His name was Anders Frederick Emil Victor Lassen, an individual who would come to be known, perhaps with a touch of awe and trepidation, as the Terrible Viking. His reputation was a testament to the extraordinary journey he had undertaken, crossing paths with the chaos of war despite lacking traditional military credentials. Anders Lassen was born on the 22nd of September in the year 1920, the year marking the dawn of a new decade wrought with upheavals. His birthplace was on a large estate called Hovdingsgard, situated near the Danish town of Mern, a region known for its lush farmland and historic charm. His family belonged to the nation's upper class, owning vast lands and wealth, and they anticipated that he would follow in their footsteps, taking over the sprawling estate and managing its affairs in accordance with decades-old traditions. As the oldest child among 3 siblings, his future seemed mapped out in accordance with the expectations of his affluent lineage. However, from an early age, Anders revealed a spirit vastly different from the somber dignity usually associated with aristocratic upbringing. Instead of settling into the routine of estate management, he demonstrated an insatiable curiosity and a restless desire for exploration. Countless hours were spent wandering through the surrounding woods, silently observing the natural environment as if he were a natural predator, stalking the shadows and listening to the whispers of the forest. During these solitary adventures, he cultivated an extraordinary talent for archery and marksmanship, honing his skills with a bow and gun to a level that would later garner admiration and notoriety. It was in these quiet moments of outdoor exploration that his relentless pursuit of mastery was forged, laying the foundations for the fearless and resourceful character he would later exemplify. His education took place at one of Denmark's most prestigious institutions, the Herlufsholm School, renowned for its rigorous academic standards and elite student body. Yet, Anders' academic record at Herlufsholm was nothing short of disastrous. His exam results were so poor that they marked the lowest in his entire cohort. Such performance was a stark deviation from the familial ambitions and expectations set upon him, and his parents' hopes for his future as a landowner and administrator were dashed. Disillusioned by the academic route and unwilling to follow the traditional aristocratic path, he decided to chart his own course. one that would ultimately steer him toward the open sea. In January of 1939, with a spirit eager for adventure, the young Dane embarked aboard the MS Fionia, a vessel operated by the East Asiatic Company, bound for the bustling port of Bangkok. The voyage offered him more than just a change of scenery. It provided a taste of the exploration and freedom that he craved. The maritime world, with its endless horizons, unpredictable weather, and camaraderie among sailors, appealed to his innate sense of adventure, far removed from the constraints of high society and estate management. It was an escape from the pressing expectations of his background, and as the ship sailed through distant waters, Lassen felt a newfound sense of purpose stirring within him. After a journey of approximately 4 months, he returned to Copenhagen, the Danish capital, with a renewed determination. Not long after, he secured a berth aboard another vessel, the tanker MV Eleonora Maersk, where he further immersed himself in life at sea. The ties to the maritime world grew stronger, fueling his desire for daring endeavors. In August of that same year, a poignant farewell took place. His mother traveled from Denmark to Hamburg to see him off as he prepared for another voyage. By now, Europe was becoming increasingly tense, teetering on the brink of global conflict. The specter of war cast its shadow over the continent, and Lassen was about to find his destiny intertwined with the tumult of history. At this point, in 1939, Denmark remained officially neutral as European nations surged toward the outbreak of warfare. The MV Eleonora Maersk continued its routine role in commercial shipping, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. But in the early hours of the 9th of April, 1940, fate intervened dramatically. While navigating the waters of the Persian Gulf, her crew received alarming news from the Danish shipping authorities. Germany had launched a swift and brutal invasion of Denmark. Their message was clear. Every Danish ship was to immediately seek shelter at neutral ports or return to German-controlled harbors to avoid seizure or destruction. Yet, Anders Lassen and his fellow crew members harbored a fierce sense of defiance. Their loyalty and outrage over Germany's aggressive actions prompted them to consider alternatives. Instead of complying with the orders to surrender, they devised a plan to sail away from the encroaching German forces. Their chosen destination was the British Protectorate of Bahrain, a strategic island in the Persian Gulf under British control. This daring decision was driven by Lassen's instinct for independence and his budding sense of adventure. Once they reached Bahrain, the tanker was requisitioned by the British Ministry of War Transport, and the ship was transformed into a vital wartime asset. She now flew the British ensign and was fitted with a gun, an armament that marked her as a vessel ready for wartime duties. Anders Lassen, with fiery enthusiasm, eagerly enlisted into the crew responsible for manning the weaponry. It was a turning point in his life. He felt as though he had finally discovered his true calling, being at the forefront of action, defending against enemies, and playing a tangible role in the unfolding global conflict. Yet, he was not content with merely observing from afar. He sought closer engagement with the battlefield. His restless spirit pushed him toward more direct involvement. In late 1940, he signed on with the British tanker SS British Consul as a gunner, leaving the waters off Cape Town and heading toward the shores of Scotland. The journey was fraught with peril, as German aircraft rapidly gained supremacy in the skies. During the voyage, the ship was sporadically attacked by German planes, a harrowing experience for all aboard. For the 20-year-old Dane, this was a defining moment. It was his chance to stand and fight, to shoot back at the enemy who threatened their vessel and crew. Armed with courage and a rifle, he finally had the opportunity to confront the danger directly, marking his emergence as a combatant in the broader struggle of the war. Thus, from the serene Danish estates to the perilous waters of wartime Europe and beyond, Anders Lassen's journey was characterized by an extraordinary blend of youthful daring, unconventional beginnings, and an unwavering drive to step boldly into chaos and challenge. His story exemplifies a spirit unbound by traditional expectations, one fueled by a relentless desire for adventure and a profound willingness to face the most formidable adversaries, regardless of the odds. After arriving in Scotland to spend the Christmas holidays, what initially was an occasion for joy and celebration quickly turned into an experience of profound disappointment and mounting frustration for him. As he stepped onto the cold, dark streets of Newcastle upon Tyne, he felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness, an unfamiliar emptiness that gnawed at him deeply. For the first time in his entire life, he found himself entirely Gauli, with no familiar faces around him, surrounded by strangers in a land that was completely foreign to his origins and experiences. The festive season, which should have been filled with warmth and connections, was now overshadowed by a growing sense of alienation as he wandered aimlessly through the wintry streets, seeking some sense of purpose or direction. During these bleak weeks, he found himself turning to alcohol more often than not, seeking refuge in heavy drinking to drown out the isolation and emotional turmoil that plagued him. His days blurred into one another as he aimlessly roamed through the city, feeling lost and disconnected from everything familiar. However, this period of despair and aimlessness was abruptly interrupted by a chance encounter that would alter his entire destiny. Unexpectedly, he crossed paths with an agent from the Secret Operations Executive, a clandestine organization conducting covert missions behind enemy lines. This chance meeting ignited a beacon of hope within him, opening a new chapter filled with possibilities he had never imagined. The SOE, established specifically to carry out sabotage and guerrilla activities against the Axis powers during the war, was actively seeking recruits, and they found in him a suitable candidate for their covert operations. The organization was focused on recruiting individuals capable of undertaking dangerous tasks in the occupied territories, including Denmark, which was under tight German control. Recognizing his unique skills and potential, the agents invited him to undergo rigorous training, which he commenced at one of their specialized schools in January of the year 1941. At first, he found the classroom lessons to be dull and monotonous, often lacking inspiration or excitement, and he struggled to find motivation in the theoretical aspects of the program. Yet, everything took a dramatic turn when he was transferred from the mundane classroom setting to the intense and physically demanding environment of the paramilitary training grounds nestled within the rugged Scottish Highlands. Surrounded by vast stretches of wild, unspoiled countryside, he was pushed to his physical and mental limits through rigorous exercises, survival drills, and combat simulations. It was here, amidst the challenging terrain and unforgiving conditions, that he finally felt truly in his element. His childhood experiences of hunting, tracking, and navigating through the dense woods of Denmark had inadvertently prepared him perfectly for this kind of combat training. He discovered he could move silently through rough, uneven terrains, employing skills that seemed almost supernatural, and his abilities with firearms were exceptional, demonstrating precision and calm under pressure. Moreover, his physical stamina appeared boundless, enabling him to endure hardships that would have broken others. His instructors, observing his remarkable capabilities, quickly recognized that while his temper could sometimes flare and he tended to disregard authority figures, these traits made him less suitable for traditional espionage work that required subtlety and patience. Instead, they saw in him the ideal candidate for guerrilla warfare, an unconventional, aggressive form of resistance involving hit-and-run tactics, sabotage, and direct engagement with the enemy's forces. By April of the year 1941, an unprecedented opportunity presented itself. A new special unit was being formed, spearheaded by the charismatic yet disciplined Major Gustavus March Phillips. This elite team was envisioned to undertake daring raids behind enemy lines, striking swiftly and unexpectedly to undermine the occupying forces. March Phillips, a man known for his leadership qualities and strategic vision, had requisitioned a specially converted vessel, a 65-ton Brixham trawler named Maid Honor, that would serve as their mobile base of operations during covert maritime missions. This vessel had been meticulously refitted for clandestine operations, equipped with hidden compartments, communication gear, and advanced navigational tools. With a core crew no larger than 11 men, March Phillips carefully selected his team, prioritizing individuals with diverse skills crucial for the success of their missions. Lassen was among those chosen, not only because of his prowess in close-quarters combat and his warrior instincts, but also due to his sailing expertise, an essential skill for the perilous maritime operations they planned to undertake. By August of the same year, the Maid Honor had set sail from the port of Poole, heading toward the West African coast. Their voyage lasted for 6 arduous weeks across the Atlantic, during which the crew endured relentless storms, rough seas, and the constant tension that comes with clandestine operations far from home. Eventually, they reached Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone, where their mission was to locate and gather intelligence about German submarine bases operating along the West African coast. Despite their diligent efforts, they found no concrete evidence of U-boat activity in the region. However, the agents associated with the SOE had uncovered something more significant in the area. They discovered that the Spanish colony of Fernando hosted several enemy vessels berthed at the port of Santa Isabel. Among them were a German tugboat named La Comba, a barge called Babundi, and an Italian merchant ship known as Duchessa d'Aosta. Of particular concern was the Duchessa d'Aosta, a merchant vessel equipped with an advanced radio transmitter capable of relaying vital naval intelligence to the Axis powers, thereby posing a serious threat to the Allied naval operations. Further complicating matters was her cargo manifest, which listed seemingly innocuous goods such as wool, animal hides, and copper. Yet, the first page of the cargo list was mysteriously missing, fueling suspicions that the vessel might be secretly carrying arms or ammunition concealed within the cargo, or perhaps in hidden compartments. Recognizing the strategic importance of this opportunity, March Phillips, Lassen, and the rest of the team understood that this was a chance they could not afford to overlook. It was an ideal target for a precision strike aimed at crippling enemy supplies and communication channels, an attack that could significantly weaken their opponent's operational capacity in the region. Despite the fact that the ships involved in the operation were docked within a port controlled by Spain, a country officially neutral during the ongoing conflict, the situation was complex and fraught with legal and diplomatic sensitivities. Under international law, any attempt by a foreign power to interfere with vessels simply resting in a neutral port would be considered a violation of neutrality, carrying significant political repercussions. Initially, the authorities representing Britain were cautious and hesitant, refusing to endorse or support any direct action that could be construed as an infringement on Spanish sovereignty or international law. They were well aware of the delicate diplomatic balance, fearing that such interference could provoke an escalation or retaliatory measures from Spain or other neutral nations. However, as time passed and the circumstances evolved, the British government slowly began to reconsider its stance. By early January of the following year, Britain's leadership recognized that the proof needed to justify outright intervention would be nearly impossible to establish definitively. They acknowledged that a covert operation might be the only viable way forward, one that would allow them to achieve their strategic objectives without attracting international condemnation or compromising their diplomatic relations. It was during this period of reassessment that the British authorized a secret mission, which was subsequently code-named Operation Postmaster. This clandestine enterprise was designed to be executed with utmost discretion and precision, leveraging covert agents and specialized tactics to achieve a decisive result. The core of the plan involved deploying a covert operative from the Special Operations Executive, an organization well-versed in undercover and sabotage missions. An officer named Richard Lippett was recruited for this delicate role. His task was to penetrate the operations of a shipping company known as John Holt and Company, which managed vessels that fell within the target category. Once embedded within the company's network, Lippett's mission was to gather intelligence from the officers and crew who operated the German and Italian ships under the company's ownership. His objective was to build a detailed understanding of the ship's schedules, routines, and personnel, all while maintaining complete stealth. As Lippett gathered bit-by-bit information about the ship's movements, crew composition, and operational patterns, he devised a daring plan to exploit the enemy's confidence. The climax of his infiltration would be a social event, a dinner gathering hosted on the island of Fernando Pa, located off the coast of West Africa. During this event, he would extend invitations to the officers serving on the German and Italian vessels, creating an opportunity for informal interaction and the exchange of valuable intelligence. While the enemy officers relaxed, enjoyed food and drinks, and believed themselves to be safe from harm, the Commandos from the British Special Unit, known as Maid Honor, would discreetly board the ships docked nearby. Their objective was straightforward yet audacious: to seize the vessels swiftly and without unnecessary confrontation, thereby denying the enemy a key asset and earning an invaluable strategic advantage. On the night of January 14th, under cover of darkness, two British tugs stealthily approached Santa Isabel Harbor, the main port where the ships were anchored, with their lights intentionally extinguished to remain undetectable. They moved silently, slipping into the harbor at precisely 11:30 in the evening, undetected by the enemy lookouts. Led by a seasoned officer named Lassen, the boarding party disembarked onto the German vessel, the Duchessa d'Aosta, while other teams simultaneously launched their attack on the nearby German ships. Lassen and his team wasted no time once on board. Their mission was twofold: to disable the vessel's ability to maneuver by destroying the anchor chains, and to secure the ship's crews so they could be prevented from raising alarms or interfering. To accomplish this, some of the Commandos planted explosive charges directly onto the anchor chains, an operation both risky and precise. Meanwhile, Lassen's team moved swiftly below decks, swiftly rounding up the stunned and overwhelmed crew members who had no time to react. The crew, caught completely off guard, was left disoriented and incapable of mounting resistance. In a matter of mere minutes, the explosive charges detonated, severing the anchor chains and rendering the ships immobilized. This chaotic and audacious action caused a rapid panic among the Spanish military forces tasked with guarding the harbor. Anti-aircraft gun crews, likely misled by the sudden explosion and confusion, opened fire at imaginary aerial attackers, adding to the disorder. In truth, the British Commandos had already slipped away just as swiftly as they had arrived, towing the captured vessels out of the harbor with them. The entire operation, conducted with remarkable speed and coordination, was completed in roughly 30 minutes, a feat that left no room for casualties or injury among the British team, and resulted in the successful seizure of the enemy ships. When the officers of the German vessels returned from what they believed was a routine evening dinner, they found their ships missing from the moorings. All that remained were empty berths and silent moorings where their vessels had once been. The Germans, naturally, were furious, their outrage amplified by the appearance of a blatant breach of sovereignty. The Spanish authorities, for their part, expressed their indignation publicly. Ramon Serrano Suñer, Spain's foreign minister, condemned the operation fiercely, declaring that it was an intolerable attack on our sovereignty, emphasizing the violation of neutral waters and treaty obligations. He further added that no Spaniard can fail to be roused by this act of piracy committed in defiance of every right and within waters under our jurisdiction. Despite this angry rhetoric, the Spanish government and their allies understood there was little they could do to retaliate against the British operation, as the ships had already been taken and the covert mission was successfully completed. Operation Postmaster marked a significant strategic victory for the British, showcasing their ability to execute daring, behind-the-scenes missions with remarkable precision. In recognition of his leadership during the daring boarding and seizure of the Duchessa d'Aosta, Lieutenant Lassen was promptly given a field commission, elevating him to the rank of second lieutenant. Additionally, he was awarded the Military Cross immediately, a prestigious decoration recognizing conspicuous bravery and leadership in combat. The success of this operation heightened Lassen's reputation within the special operations community and among his peers. Following this remarkable achievement, Lassen spent some time in Nigeria, where he was involved in training local tribesmen in guerrilla warfare tactics and sabotage methods. skills vital for the broader conduct of asymmetrical warfare. While he appreciated the responsibility and the independence that came with this role, he found himself increasingly frustrated by the distance it placed him from active combat. He yearned for the direct action and adrenaline of frontline operations. Eventually, he decided to leave his position in Nigeria, expressing his feelings candidly in his diary, writing that some time ago, I refused the offer of a very interesting job. It gave me no chance of slaughtering any of the devils, and so I refused it. It was clear that Lassen's true passion lay in the thrill of direct engagement with the enemy. Before long, he rejoined his former comrades, notably his superior officer Gus March Phillips, who was in charge of the wider operation. Because of their previous success, the unit gained a new designation, the Small-Scale Raiding Force, also known as No. 62 Commando. This reorganization reflected an expansion of their capabilities and an increased focus on quick, targeted strikes behind enemy lines, utilizing stealth and surprise to achieve operational goals with minimal resources but maximum effect. The spectacular success of Operation Postmaster thus served as a catalyst for this evolution, shaping the future of British covert operations during that period. Operating under the direct command of Lord Louis Mountbatten's renowned Combined Operations, a specialized military organization responsible for executing daring and covert missions, they set their sights on striking targets along the northern coast of France, as well as the strategically significant Channel Islands. Their tactics were primarily centered around what became known as pinprick raids, small-scale, highly targeted operations meticulously designed to serve multiple crucial purposes. These included gathering critical intelligence, capturing prisoners who could provide valuable information, undermining enemy morale by demonstrating that the Allies were capable of hitting their targets, and most importantly, diverting and tying up German military resources that might otherwise have been used on other fronts. Such missions were crafted to be swift, silent, and precise, creating a ripple effect of strategic advantage without engaging in large-scale battles. Among those who thrived in this turbulent environment was Lassen, a man whose skills and adaptability allowed him to excel in this kind of clandestine warfare. Alongside his comrades from the Commandos, Lassen frequently crossed the treacherous waters of the English Channel, voyaging in specially adapted motor torpedo boats. These vessels had been outfitted with soundproofed engines, not only to evade enemy detection, but also to facilitate rapid, covert landings on German-occupied beaches. The swift crossings and amphibious landings became almost routine for Lassen and his team, as they slipped ashore under the cover of darkness, struck their carefully chosen targets with precision, and disappeared into the shadows before the Germans could even realize they had been hit. Lassen quickly became famous, not merely for his daring raids, but also for his remarkable ability to interpret terrain with a kind of instinctive understanding. He could navigate through unfamiliar and often hostile environments with exceptional speed and stealth, moving silently, as if he were invisible. His prowess in this form of warfare gained him recognition among his peers and the admiration of his superiors, who saw in him a model of the ideal commando, fearless, resourceful, and capable of operating on the very edge of danger. His biographer, Thomas Harder, later noted with admiration, his complete disregard for danger was legendary. However, Lassen's reputation reached a darker moment in October of the year 1942 during a specific operation named Operation Basalt, which took place on the Channel Island of Sark. This was one of many secret raids aimed at disrupting German occupation forces. During this particular mission, the soldiers managed to capture 5 German soldiers, whom they bound according to the accepted protocols, hands tied securely behind their backs. But as the Allied commandos prepared to lead the prisoners away from the scene, chaos erupted. The prisoners suddenly made a desperate and coordinated attempt to break free, desperately trying to escape. In the ensuing tumult, tragedy struck. 2 of the German soldiers lost their lives, with at least one of these deaths attributed to Lassen himself, who had used his knife in an attempt to subdue the prisoners. When the aftermath was discovered, particularly the sight of 2 lifeless prisoners, both with bound hands, The Germans accused the British forces of executing these soldiers extrajudicially. The incident caused significant outrage and was used by the Nazi leadership to justify harsher measures. Furious and unwavering in his convictions, Adolf Hitler issued his infamous Commando Order, a decree that explicitly stated that all captured Allied commandos must be executed immediately upon capture, regardless of whether they attempted to surrender. This had dire consequences. Lassen and his compatriots inadvertently provoked the Nazi high command into abandoning the customary laws of war, unleashing a brutal policy that deemed surrender meaningless and justified summary executions. Throughout that year, the special operations through cross-channel raids persisted, defying expectations and continuing to harass the German occupation. Yet, the tide was gradually turning against these daring missions. In September, an operation known as Operation Aquitaine was launched near St. Honorine-de-Perthes in Normandy. This mission aimed at targeting German airfields, but ended in catastrophe, with the loss of March Phillips and most of his men. Fortunate for Lassen, he had not been assigned to that ill-fated raid, sparing him from particular danger in that instance. Nonetheless, by early 1943, it became evident that the unit known as No. 62 Commando had reached the end of its operational lifespan. The unit was officially disbanded, and its remaining members were absorbed into other specialized formations, their past sacrifices recognized as vital, but their original organization effectively ceased to exist. For Lassen, this transition marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, introducing him to uncharted theaters of war, arenas far more perilous and treacherous. In the early months of 1943, Lassen found himself aboard a ship headed for the Mediterranean theater, a region already fraught with intense conflict and complex political alliances. There, he transitioned into joining the elite and highly specialized unit known as the Special Boat Service. This highly secretive amphibious unit had emerged from the restructuring of the famed Special Air Service and was tasked with conducting reconnaissance, sabotage, and covert operations behind enemy lines, often in the most inhospitable environments. Based in Palestine, the SBS was commanded by Major George Jellicoe, a leader known for his toughness and strategic acumen. Lassen's first significant challenge with the SBS came in July of 1943, when a unit was ordered to execute diversionary raids on key German-held airfields in Crete and Sardinia. These daring attacks aimed to create the illusion that the Allies were preparing to invade these regions, thereby diverting German attention and resources away from the actual invasion plans targeting Sicily. Lassen was selected to lead a four-man patrol assigned to attack Castelli Airfield, situated on the island of Crete. This mission was both risky and crucial, designed to mislead German defenses and complicate their logistical planning, all while maintaining the cover of secrecy that was so vital for the success of such covert operations. After being transported covertly by a motor launch across the waters, the determined team of soldiers disembarked carefully into a small, seemingly unnoticeable dinghy, a fragile vessel that carried them silently through the night. From there, they proceeded on foot, embarking on a grueling, physically demanding march that extended over 2 exhausting days, traversing the rugged, treacherous terrain of the island's unwelcoming mountain ranges. The landscape was characterized by its harshness, steep slopes, rocky outcrops, and dense thickets that made every step a test of endurance and resilience. Despite the relentless nature of these mountains, the team pressed on with unwavering determination, knowing that their objective lay somewhere beyond the surrounding wilderness. When at last they arrived at their destination, their carefully chosen target, the operations truly began. Lassen, the leader of the assault, made the strategic decision to split his patrol into 2 smaller groups, each consisting of 2 men, to strike from separate directions simultaneously. This tactic was designed to increase their chances of success and reduce the risk of detection. As night fell and darkness cloaked the landscape, Lassen and Private Ray Jones moved stealthily through the German-held perimeter, carefully avoiding the watchful eyes of sentries. They approached the parked German aircraft with calculated precision, deftly attaching timed explosive devices to the aircraft rendering them vulnerable to destruction. Suddenly, their stealth was broken by the sharp challenge of a guard, who spotted them and called out, alerting the entire garrison. Without hesitation and with deadly efficiency, Lassen eliminated the sentry to prevent him from raising an alarm. However, the gunshot's echo was soon heard by others, and chaos immediately erupted as the soldiers found themselves caught in a fierce firefight. Despite the intense skirmish, the distraction proved to be advantageous for Lassen's team. The confusion drew attention away from the other two members of the patrol, who seized this moment to carry out their own critical mission, planting additional bombs on an extra pair of aircraft. Once their task was complete, they swiftly slipped away, disappearing into the cover of darkness before the defenders could react. Moments later, as the explosions ignited the airfield in a cacophony of destruction, ripping through the silence and tearing apart the German aircraft and infrastructure, Lassen and Jones managed to make their escape amid the chaos. Their entire raid was a textbook example of precision, daring, and strategic planning, an effective special operations mission that culminated in the successful destruction of 5 German aircraft and the safe evacuation of their team from Crete. The remarkable achievement earned Lassen a prestigious bar to his military cross, a recognition that acknowledged not only the success of the mission, but also his emerging reputation as a natural leader in the most perilous circumstances. Following the surrender of Italy in September of that year, the Allied forces sought to take the initiative and attempt to undermine German control over the strategic Dodecanese Islands before they could firmly entrench themselves. Operating from clandestine bases concealed along the neutral Turkish coast, special boat service patrols repeatedly ventured into dangerous waters controlled by the Germans, embarked on covert missions aboard traditional Greek fishing vessels called kayaks. During daylight hours, these patrols would find sanctuary on remote, uninhabited islands, hidden from view. Under cover of darkness, they would launch swift and deadly strikes against German positions, striking with devastating precision. It was during one such campaign that Lassen's talents truly found a perfect proving ground. Although this effort ultimately proved unsuccessful in gaining strategic advantage, it marked the beginning of Lassen's legendary career in the perilous and unpredictable waters of the Aegean Sea. By April of the year 4044, Anders Lassen had received a promotion to the rank of captain, a significant milestone in his military career. His reputation had by now become formidable among his peers, and he had established himself as a fearless and highly capable leader, capable of inspiring confidence even in the most dangerous and complex operations. His commanding officers, including Major Jellicoe, described him as possessing every quality characteristic of a Viking buccaneer: extraordinary courage, remarkable physical stamina, a devil-may-care attitude, and keen tactical intelligence. Such traits earned him the affectionate nickname, the Terrible Viking, among his comrades, a title that reflected both his fierce demeanor and his legendary reputation. On the 19th of April, Lassen took command of an 18-man SBS team, which embarked from their secret base on 2 schooners, vessels reminiscent of traditional Greek mariners' boats, heading toward the volcanic island of Santorini. After a perilous 3-day voyage across open waters, they finally reached a remote, uninhabited beach near Cape Colombo, where they made contact with local resistance fighters, Greece's brave civilians committed to resisting occupation. Guided by the local fighters, they were led to a concealed cave, a hideout where they could shelter during daylight hours while planning their next moves. Their intelligence had been meticulously gathered by Lieutenant Stefanos Kazoulis, who had successfully infiltrated the town of Phyra in civilian clothing, a dangerous and delicate operation. Using this vital information, Lassen divided his team into 3 smaller groups, assigning each a distinct and critical task. The first group was to launch an attack on the German military barracks situated in the heart of the town, aiming to weaken the enemy's local presence and command structure. The second detachment was tasked with capturing the German commanding officer at his residence, an operation designed to eliminate a key figure in the German command hierarchy. Meanwhile, The third team was given the crucial objective of destroying the radio station located at Imero-Vigli, which served as an essential communications relay between Athens and the main German-held territories. Each group had to execute its mission swiftly and silently, with precision and coordination, to maximize their effectiveness and cause maximum disruption to the occupying forces on this strategically significant island. On the early morning of April the 24th, precisely at 12:45 a.m., a coordinated and meticulously planned assault was set into motion. It was a daring operation, orchestrated with precision and purpose. Leading the charge was Lassen, whose strategic acumen and unwavering resolve drove the attack on the heavily fortified barracks, a sturdy, defensible building that housed the majority of the 35-man garrison. Despite the presence of the barking, alert dogs that threatened to betray their stealthy approach, the Commandos succeeded in creeping up and executing their plan with astonishing surprise. The assault was launched from two separate directions simultaneously, creating a deadly pincer that effectively encircled the German soldiers and forced them into a crossfire from which escape was nearly impossible. The ensuing close-quarters combat was exceedingly brutal, leaving most of the German defenders eliminated or incapacitated in the ferocity of the fight. Yet, despite the tactical success, the victory exacted a toll. Lieutenant Kazulis was hit by a bullet in his chest, causing instant death, his bravery etched into the story of that daring night. Sergeant Frank Kingston was wounded so severely that he could not be saved. He succumbed to his injuries hours later, leaving behind a legacy marked by sacrifice. Meanwhile, the operation aimed to capture the German commander was thwarted when he managed to slip away amid the chaos, escaping into the darkness before he could be apprehended. However, a critical objective was achieved. Timed charges installed at the radio station detonated successfully, annihilating the enemy's communications hub and crippling their operational capabilities. As dawn approached, Lassen's team swiftly withdrew from the scene aboard the waiting schooners, making their escape with finesse. Among the retreating group were some local villagers who had generously provided assistance and guidance during the raid, and they were evacuated along with the Commandos, ensuring both their safety and the success of the operation. The violence and chaos of that night, however, extended beyond the immediate combat zone. In acts of brutal reprisal, the Germans executed 5 local civilians, including the village's mayor, as retribution for the attack. Furthermore, 13 other innocent lives were lost when they attempted to loot German supplies from the wreckage of the destroyed radio station and inadvertently triggered remaining explosives, which detonated with devastating effect. This series of violent reprisals and destruction left a dark stain on the operation's aftermath and cemented its place in military history with a grim nickname, Lassen's Bloodbath, a moniker that both Allies and Germans would soon adopt to describe the night's ferocity. Despite the ruthless reputation earned through such intense and deadly engagements, Lassen's leadership style won him admiration and respect from both his men and his commanding officers. He was notorious for his extraordinary skill, unwavering courage, and tactical brilliance. But what set him apart was his empathy and humanity. He was an officer who led by example, always placing himself at the front of the action and never asking his teams to undertake riskier tasks than he was willing to face himself. His dedication and courage inspired those under his command, forging a bond of trust and loyalty that endured through many more missions to come. By the autumn of that year, in the month of October, just 24 years old, Anders Lassen had already achieved the remarkable milestone of being promoted to the rank of major within the British Army. This was an extraordinary accomplishment for such a young officer, especially considering that he had no conventional military background prior to the war. He had begun the conflict as a struggling Danish student, often failing in his early academic pursuits, and yet through perseverance, bravery, and exceptional leadership, he had climbed the ranks at an unprecedented pace. His ascent was a testament to his innate talent and the impact he had made on broader military efforts. As the lines of German resistance across Greece steadily began to collapse, Lassen was soon to confront a task of even greater significance and complexity. On the 29th of October, Lassen led an extraordinary undertaking. The first British forces to enter the historic city of Saloniki, Greece's second-largest metropolis. The Germans, aware that their withdrawal was imminent, were preparing to destroy vital infrastructure such as the harbor installations and fuel depots, intending to deny their use to the advancing Allies. Lassen, however, had other plans rooted in daring deception and tactical ingenuity. Despite commanding a relatively small force, comprising only 50 men, Lassen was able to convince the German defenders that he was leading a much larger, more formidable force than he actually had. Through a series of bold and well-calculated maneuvers, including clever tactics and convincing bluffs, he created the illusion of overwhelming strength. The Germans, believing that they faced a substantial army arrayed against them, believed retreating was their safest option. As a result, they abandoned their plan to destroy the port facilities and withdrew from the city, leaving the essential harbor installations intact and available for Allied use. Lassen's deception was so convincing that it effectively thwarted the Germans' primary objective of damaging one of Greece's most strategic ports. For approximately a week, Lassen's unit functioned in an unofficial capacity as the military authority in Saloniki. Although their presence was meant to be temporary and discreet, Lassen's leadership and tactical skill effectively made him the de facto authority overseeing the city's security and stability. An impressive feat given the small size of his force and the complex political environment. His ability to leverage psychological warfare and tactical misdirection earned him a reputation among both Allied and Axis forces. Later that year, in December, Lassen was entrusted with an even more significant responsibility, a role that would put him at the helm of one of the most pivotal parts of the Mediterranean theater. He was appointed as the governor of Crete, a strategic island with a complex history and critical importance to Allied operations. The German military had withdrawn a garrison numbering approximately 13,000 soldiers to a heavily fortified pocket in the northwestern part of the island, effectively establishing a secure stronghold. Lassen's task was to contain this German force while preventing internal unrest from escalating into a full-scale civil war within Greece that could threaten the entire region. To accomplish this, Lassen assembled a small, hastily formed fighting unit, humorously dubbed Sun Force, which was tasked with the challenging mission of containing the German pockets of resistance. Despite the limited number of men and the urgent circumstances, Lassen's leadership and ingenuity turned this tiny force into a formidable barrier. His overarching goal was not only to prevent the Germans from consolidating their position, but also to maintain stability on the island and prevent local conflicts from erupting into broader civil unrest. The task was daunting, but Lassen's strategic vision and relentless determination gave the Allies a crucial foothold on Crete, helping to secure the region in a turbulent period of the war. During the intense and challenging 2 months he spent in command on the island of Crete, Lassen faced a series of formidable tests that pushed the limits of his leadership skills and strategic acumen to their very edges. The fragile and often volatile relationships between the various partisan groups, those aligned with communist ideologies and the other factions supporting the right-wing or nationalist causes, began to deteriorate steadily over time, leading to an increasingly dangerous and unpredictable environment. As tensions escalated, the conflict did not remain confined to the guerrilla fighters alone. Instead, it extended into the realm of civilian interactions, with the local population, initially regarded as allies, becoming increasingly hostile and aggressive toward the Allied forces. The soldiers from Lassen's SBS units soon found themselves not only fighting against the well-armed communist guerrillas who launched sudden and deadly attacks, but also facing hostility from the very communities they had set out to protect and assist. The situation on Crete worsened until it reached an explosive climax, a point where the entire security situation could no longer be contained or managed effectively. Tragically, this turmoil culminated in the loss of 2 of Lassen's men during an ambush, a harrowing event that included the death of his close comrade, Captain Charles Maurice Kleins, whose loss hit Lassen especially hard. These tragic incidents deeply underscored the perilous nature of his command and the high stakes involved in maintaining control over such a turbulent environment. In the early months of February of the following year, 1945, Lassen saw the need to withdraw from Crete, understanding that the island situation had become too precarious and that his forces needed a strategic regrouping elsewhere. He made the decision to leave behind the challenging terrain and complex alliances of Crete and to travel back to Italy, accompanied by his trusted colleague, Sunforce. This departure brought a sense of relief, not only for Lassen, but also for the entire command, as they handed over the island's defense to a more formidable and better-equipped British garrison that was now capable of maintaining order and stability amid the ongoing conflict. By the time spring arrived in Italy, the tide of the war was unmistakably turning against the German forces occupying the country. Planning and preparation for a decisive offensive were underway, with Allied commanders determined to break through the notorious Gothic Line, an extensive and formidable defensive barrier that had long choked off their advance into northern Italy. The ultimate aim of this large-scale offensive was to eliminate the German forces from Italian territory entirely, restoring the Allies' momentum and paving the way for victory in Europe. The campaign was set to unfold when the British Eighth Army would mount a daring and skillful assault through a narrow, strategically critical corridor known as the Argina Gap, a slender strip of land that could serve as the key to breaking the fortified German defenses. However, before launching the main attack, Allied commanders needed to persuade the enemy that their assault would come from the opposite direction, thus encouraging the Germans to divert their reserves away from the actual point of attack. To accomplish this deception, a carefully planned operation called Roast was devised, centered around Lake Comacchio, a large, muddy body of water with a unique geographical profile that made it ideal for cunning tactics. The plan involved deploying the 2nd Commando Brigade in a way that simulated the approach of a major coastal offensive. Their task was to storm and clear the exposed, muddy spit of land that separated Lake Comacchio from the Adriatic Sea, creating the illusion that an amphibious landing force was preparing to strike along the coast. This ruse was designed to draw German reinforcements away from the true target located inland, thereby easing the main offensive's progress and increasing the chances of success for the Allies. On the night of April the 8th, the renowned Anders Lassen received precise orders to command an 18-man special boat service patrol. Their mission was to carry out a diversionary raid along the northern shoreline of Lake Comacchio, with the specific goal of generating maximum noise, disruption, and confusion to encourage the German defenders to believe that a large-scale landing was imminent. The team was tasked with creating a disturbance that would convincingly reinforce the illusion that a massive amphibious assault was underway, thereby drawing enemy reserves away from the real strategic point of attack. That night, under the cover of darkness, Lassen and his men silently landed on the narrow spit of land that jutted into the lake, knowing that their movements would be exposed to the water and the sparse roads flanking either side. They found themselves constrained by the terrain, a road flanked on both sides by water, leaving little room for maneuvering or retreat. Lassen, leading his team with unwavering determination, advanced cautiously along the road, with 2 scouts forging ahead to reconnoiter the enemy positions. However, their careful approach was abruptly interrupted when German sentries challenged them from a roadside position, their rifles trained and ready to fire. Thinking quickly, one of Lassen's men, who was fluent in Italian, attempted to bluff the enemy, claiming they were local fishermen merely returning to their homes after a night's work, an attempt to pass as innocuous civilians. For a brief moment, it seemed that the deception might succeed, and the Germans hesitated, perhaps convinced that no threat was present. But suddenly, the calm was shattered as machine gun fire erupted from the German positions, filling the air with deadly bullets, quickly reinforced by additional gunfire from 2 other nearby emplacements. Without hesitation, Lassen charged forward, undaunted by the deadly hail of bullets, transforming himself into a blur of motion as he sprinted towards the first German position. Armed with hand grenades, he launched a fierce assault, storming into the enemy emplacement and unleashing destruction. His attack killed 4 Germans instantly and wiped out 2 of their machine guns, collapsing the defenses and dealing a significant blow to their morale. Moving rapidly, Lassen didn't pause to breathe but pressed on, leading a daring charge against the second fortified position. Under covering fire provided by his men, he threw grenades again, this time silencing the second German emplacement and killing 2 more enemy soldiers. Meanwhile, casualties among Lassen's team had begun to erode their firepower, as some members had been wounded or killed, leaving fewer effective weapons to continue the fight. Despite these setbacks, the remaining German positions retaliated fiercely, with a 4th emplacement opening fire from a distance of approximately 300 yards down the road, complicating the situation. Still under heavy attack from multiple directions, Lassen refused to retreat or surrender. Instead, he rallied his scattered and demoralized men, urging them to return fire with everything they had and to hold their ground for just a little longer. He then turned his attention to the 3rd German position, inching closer in a brave, solo drive, and hurling grenades into the enemy defenses. As sparks flew and shouts of resistance echoed around him, Lassen's persistence paid off when he heard the Germans cry out "Kamerad," indicating that they were ready to surrender. Approaching within only 3 yards of the German soldiers, Lassen moved with purpose and urgency to accept their capitulation. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, those same enemy soldiers suddenly opened fire again, unleashing a burst of machine gun fire that struck Lassen down directly. Despite being critically wounded and just moments from death, Lassen, with a remarkable display of selflessness and determination, managed to throw one final grenade at the remaining enemy occupants. His last act of courage inflicted wounds upon them, providing a crucial moment that allowed his men to surge forward and overrun the German position, ultimately achieving their goal of disrupting the deception and drawing suspicion away from the main Allied assault. His bravery and relentless fighting spirit in that perilous night exemplified ultimate sacrifice and tactical audacity, qualities that would be remembered long after in the annals of military history. When the effort was made to evacuate him from the battlefield, he steadfastly refused to leave, fully aware that doing so would hinder the smooth retreat of his comrades and could potentially put many more lives in jeopardy. This brave decision reflected his unwavering commitment and selfless nature, embodying the very essence of leadership and sacrifice. The young major, who was only 24 years old, had lived his entire life guided by the principle of putting the safety and well-being of his men above all else, consistently demonstrating courage and resolve in the face of danger. The mission they undertook involved a series of striking successes that surpassed all strategic expectations. They managed to obliterate 3 heavily fortified German positions, rendering the enemy's defenses significantly weaker. Additionally, they silenced 6 machine guns that posed a grave threat to advancing troops, effectively neutralized 8 enemy soldiers, and captured 2 prisoners, all despite operating under extreme odds and with a vastly reduced force. Their small unit, which had been diminished to a mere 10 capable men due to previous casualties and the intensity of the conflict, had achieved these remarkable feats through skill, determination, and unwavering focus. Beyond the tangible tactical victories, the operation served a higher strategic purpose. The diversionary attack successfully attracted the German unit's attention, distracting them from the main Allied assault planned through the narrow corridor known as the Aegean Gap. This diversion played a crucial role in the overall success of the broader campaign, enabling Allied forces to advance with less resistance and confusion. However, these accomplishments came at a devastating cost. That night, for soldiers belonging to Special Boat Service, a highly elite unit, lost their lives defending their comrades, including their legendary commander whose leadership had inspired many. The subsequent day, in the quiet solemnity of the local community, the bodies of Lassen and his fallen comrades were recovered with reverence by Don Francesco Mariani, a respected parish priest from the nearby town of Comacchio, alongside several local women. These devoted individuals helped ensure that the fallen soldiers were laid to rest with full honors and the dignity they deserved in the town's old cemetery. Their sacrifices would be remembered and honored by the community for generations to come. Lassen's bravery and heroism did not go unrecognized. In fact, he posthumously received the Victoria Cross, which is the highest and most prestigious military decoration awarded within the British honor system. This remarkable distinction made history, as Anders Lassen remains the only individual outside the Commonwealth countries during the entire duration of the Second World War to be honored with this prestigious award. In December of the year 1945, King George VI personally presented the medal to Lassen's family during a regal ceremony held at Buckingham Palace, cementing his memory in the annals of history. Lassen's mother, Suzanne, was deeply affected by her son's sacrifice and bravery. She later recorded her thoughts and memories in a heartfelt book that chronicled his wartime exploits, ensuring that his story would be preserved for future generations and that his heroism would not fade with time. Today, the Victoria Cross awarded to Anders Lassen is proudly displayed at the Frihedsmuseet, or Museum of Danish Resistance, located in Copenhagen. This museum stands as a testament to the bravery of those who fought against oppression during wartime. Outside the museum, in Churchill Park, a bronze bust of Lassen was unveiled in 1987, providing a lasting tribute to his remarkable life. In addition to these memorials in Denmark, the Italians have also erected a monument in honor of Lassen and his men. This monument stands proudly alongside the SP-1B highway, close to the very spot where he made his final stand, forever commemorating his courage and sacrifice. These enduring memorials serve as poignant reminders of the heroism demonstrated by a young officer whose actions inspired many and whose legacy continues to resonate even decades later.